Humans primitive. Starship humiliated them at intergalactic race. The grand intergalactic circuit floated like a glowing ribbon in the endless dark of space. It curved and twisted around a bright blue star, its light reflecting off hundreds of massive stations filled with beings from across the galaxy. Every species that had learned how to travel between stars came to watch the great race. For many, it was more than a sport. It was a way to show power, intelligence, and pride. This year, the stands were more crowded than ever. Giant screens shimmered with images of the competing ships as announcers spoke in dozens of languages at once, their voices translated into soft, clear tones for every listener. The racers were legends. The sleek crystal vessel of the Valorian Empire glowed like a moving star. The twin-ringed ship of the Cathari Union hummed with silent energy. Even the ancient stone-like craft of the Orcs Drift clan drew respectful whispers. Then, a small and dull ship appeared at the edge of the display. At first, many viewers thought it was a mistake. The ship was simple in shape, like a long metal box with two wide engines attached at the back. Its surface was not polished or glowing. There were no visible energy shields, no light trails, and no elegant curves. It looked heavy and old, as if it had been built for work instead of beauty. The name flashed across the screens in clear letters. RUSTBUCKET. Human entry laughter rolled through the crowd like a wave. The Valorian commentators tilted their glowing heads and spoke in amused tones. It seems the young species from the Sol system has brought a cargo transport instead of a racing vessel. The Cathari announcers added, perhaps they misunderstand the purpose of this event. Across the grandstands, beings of all shapes and sizes shared jokes and playful messages. Some placed bets on how long the human ship would last before falling behind. Others wondered if it would even finish the first turn. Inside the rust bucket, the human crew heard none of it. The cockpit was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of systems and the gentle tapping of fingers against metal panels. Captain Mara Vance sat in the central seat, her eyes fixed on the glowing track ahead. She was not tall or powerful compared to many of the galaxy's species, but her posture was steady, and her face was calm. Around her, the crew moved with simple purpose. Engineer Tomas Reed checked a screen filled with numbers and lines that meant little to anyone else. Navigator Lion Cho adjusted a set of physical dials instead of a floating holographic display. Systems Officer Priya Nair ran a final scan on the ship's core, her brow slightly furrowed in focus. "Status?" Mara asked, her voice even. "Engines stable," Tomas said. "Magnetic grapples locked and ready. Navigation systems green," Lion added. "Manual controls responding perfectly." Priya gave a small nod. "Core output steady, we're good to go." Myra allowed herself a small smile. "Then let's give them a show." Outside, the announcers began the formal introductions. Each ship was highlighted, its achievements and past victories listed with pride. The Valorian champion received the loudest cheers. The Rust Bucket's introduction was short and filled with polite confusion. As the ships moved into their starting positions, the track lit up with a bright line of energy. A massive countdown display appeared above the course, its numbers shining across the stars. 10. The human ship drifted into place, surrounded by vessels that looked like works of art. Light shimmered off crystal wings and curved energy fields. Compared to them, the Rust Bucket looked like a piece of forgotten history. 9. A nearby Cathari pilot sent a friendly message across the open channel. "Good luck, humans, try to keep up." Mara pressed a button and replied with a simple, cheerful tone. "We'll do our best." 8. In the stands, some viewers leaned forward, curious despite themselves. Others kept laughing, but a few noticed something strange. The sensors around the track began to show unusual readings near the human ship. Small fluctuations, tiny spikes that didn't match any known drive system. 7. Valorian technicians whispered among themselves, checking their own displays. "Are those readings coming from the human vessel?" one asked. "Probably faulty sensors," another replied. 6. Inside the rust bucket, Tomas glanced at a hidden panel. "Phase systems charged." Mara nodded once. "Hold until my mark." 5. The energy in the air felt thick, even across the vacuum of space. The racer's engines glowed brighter, ready to bend space and leap forward in flashes of light. 4. Lion placed both hands on the manual controls. Her fingers rested lightly like a musician waiting for the first note. 3. Priya took a deep breath and focused on the core readout. "Stability locked." 2, Myra leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp. Remember, smooth, simple, smart. 1. The starting signal exploded in a burst of light. Ships launched forward like shooting stars. Space itself seemed to fold and twist as gravity engines and warp drives flared to life. Trails of color and energy streaked across the dark, painting the sky with motion. For a brief moment, the rust bucket stayed behind. The crowd roared with laughter again, sure that their predictions were already coming true. Then the human ship moved. It did not flash or glow. It did not bend space or tear through dimensions. It simply accelerated, steady and strong, its engines pushing it forward like a powerful heartbeat. On the big screens, the rust bucket's position began to change, slowly at first, then faster. The first turn of the track loomed ahead, a wide curve around the bright blue star. Most ships cut through it in elegant arcs, their systems calculating perfect paths. Myra watched the curve approach. "Lion, got it," Lion said softly. She adjusted the controls, not trusting the computer alone. The rust bucket leaned into the turn, its hull humming as it followed a line that was not perfect but efficient. The ship held its course. A few racers overshot slightly, their advanced systems correcting too late. The rust bucket slipped past them, quiet and steady. In the stands, the laughter faded into confused murmurs. "What is that ship doing?" a Valorian spectator asked. "It's not using standard navigation," another replied. "It's steering." The race continued, the ships rushing toward the next section of the track. The rust bucket remained behind the leaders, but it was no longer last. It moved like a patient hunter, not chasing speed, but waiting for the right moment. Inside the cockpit, Tomas smiled. "They're burning a lot of energy already," Myra nodded. "Let them." The course ahead shimmered with strange colors. The magnetic veil waited, a storm of charged particles and shifting fields that confused even the best systems. It was a place where many races were lost. The human crew knew this part well. They had studied it, simulated it, and practiced for it. As the first ships entered the veil, their bright energy trails flickered. Some slowed down, their systems struggling to understand the chaos. Mara raised her hand. "Now!" Tomas flipped a switch. "Phase systems offline." Running blind. The rust bucket's screens changed, switching from complex maps to simple lines and numbers. Lion took full control, guiding the ship by feel and instinct instead of automated paths. The ship glided into the storm. Inside the veil, space was a shifting sea of light and shadow. Colors danced across the cockpit windows, and the hull vibrated softly. The rust bucket did not fight the storm. It moved with it, adjusting and flowing like a leaf riding a river. One by one, the glowing ships around them faltered. Some drifted off course. Others slowed to a crawl. The human ship kept going. When it emerged on the other side, the view was clear and calm. The stars shone quietly, and the track stretched out ahead like an open road. Lion looked at the position display and blinked. "Captain," Mara glanced at the screen. The rust bucket was now in the top 5. Behind them, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The small, dull ship that everyone had laughed at was no longer a joke. It was a contender. Mara allowed herself a quiet breath and set her eyes on the glowing path ahead. "All right," she said softly. "Let's see what they think of us now." And far across the grandstands and screens, a new feeling began to spread, replacing laughter with something else. The rust bucket moved forward through open space, its engines humming with a calm, steady sound. The glowing track stretched ahead like a river of light, and the stars around it seemed to watch in quiet wonder. The ship's dull metal surface reflected small pieces of starlight, not shining bright like the others, but holding its own soft glow. Inside the grandstands, the noise of the crowd slowly returned. It was no longer laughter. It was surprise. The announcers spoke quickly, their voices filled with confusion and excitement. "The human vessel has passed through the magnetic veil with almost no delay. Their systems appear to be simpler than expected." Valorian viewers leaned forward in their seats. Cathari pilots studied their screens with narrowed eyes. The ancient Orcs drifted closer to their displays, their stone-like faces unreadable. Inside the rust bucket, the crew stayed focused. Lion kept her hands steady on the controls, her eyes scanning the simple navigation lines. Tomas leaned over his console, watching the engine levels. Priya checked the core again and again, making sure every system stayed balanced. Mara sat quietly, her gaze fixed on the track. "Next section coming up," Lion said. "The gravity fields." Ahead, space seemed to ripple. Invisible forces pulled and pushed at the light of the stars, bending it into strange shapes. The gravity fields were known for breaking perfect paths and turning smooth races into sudden struggles. Most ships relied on their advanced systems to calculate millions of changes every second. The leaders of the race, including the bright Valorian ship, moved in with confidence. Their hulls glowed stronger, and their engines sent out powerful waves of energy. The rust bucket followed, calm and steady. As the human ship entered the field, the hull vibrated gently. The ship leaned to one side, then the other, as invisible forces tugged at it like unseen hands. "Adjusting," Lion said softly. She moved the controls in small, careful motions. The ship did not try to fight the gravity. It worked with it, letting the pulls guide it instead of resisting them. The rust bucket curved through the field like a slow, thoughtful dancer. On the screens across the galaxy, viewers watched in growing interest. The human ship moved differently. It did not rush. It did not shine, it simply flowed. One of the Cathari racers misjudged a turn. Their ship spun slightly before correcting itself, losing precious seconds. The rust bucket slipped past, quiet and steady. Now in fourth place. Inside the Valorian flagship, the lead pilot noticed. "They are still behind us," the pilot said, their voice calm but tense. "But they should not be this close." Their co-pilot checked the data. "Their energy use is lower than ours, much lower." The Valorian pilot tightened their grip on the controls. "Increase speed." The glowing ship surged forward, its light growing brighter, its trail longer and more intense. Myra watched the distance change on her screen. "They're pushing hard," Tomas said. Myra nodded. "Let them." The next part of the track rose like a shining hill, a long climb through thin, stretched space where engines worked harder and systems overheated easily. Many races were decided here, as weaker ships fell behind. The rust bucket began its climb. The engines hummed louder, but they did not strain. Tomas adjusted a few settings, keeping everything balanced and smooth. "Temperature steady," Priya said. "Course stable." The human ship moved up the glowing slope, passing another racer whose systems had slowed under the pressure. Now in third place, the crowd reacted with a wave of sound, not laughter, not mockery, amazement. "Are we seeing this?" a Valorian announcer said. "The human ship is climbing with almost no energy spike." "They're not forcing their way through," another replied. "They're pacing themselves." Inside the rust bucket, Lion took a slow breath. "Two ahead." Myra leaned forward slightly. "We don't need to rush." At the top of the climb, the track leveled out into a wide, open stretch. Space here was calm and quiet, like a peaceful sea after a storm. It was a place for speed. The two leading ships took off, their engines blazing with light. They became bright streaks against the dark, racing toward the next curve. The rust bucket followed. This time it pushed a little harder. The engines deepened their hum and the ship gained speed, not in a flash, not in a burst, in a steady, unstoppable way. Slowly, the distance between the human ship and the second-place racer began to shrink. Inside the second-place ship, a sleek craft from the Cathari Union, alarms sounded softly. "They're closing in," the Cathari pilot said. "That can't be right," their co-pilot replied, checking the sensors. "Their engines are weaker than ours." "Then why are they still gaining?" The rust bucket drew closer, its dull hull now clearly visible on the Cathari ship's rear display. Mara watched the gap disappear. "Lion," she said. "I see it," Lion replied. The track curved sharply to the right ahead, a turn that had claimed many racers who tried to take it too fast. The Cathari ship rushed in, trusting its systems to calculate the perfect path. The rust bucket took a different line. Lion guided it wider, slower, letting the ship settle into the turn instead of cutting it sharp. The hull leaned gently, the engines adjusting in small, precise changes. The Cathari ship overshot, correcting too late. The rust bucket slipped past, now in second place. The galaxy watched in silence. Even the announcers paused, their words lost for a moment. Inside the Valorian flagship, the lead pilot's glowing eyes narrowed. "They passed the Cathari," the co-pilot said quietly. The Valorian pilot straightened. "Then they will not pass us." The Valorian ship surged forward again, its light blazing like a small star. The distance between it and the rust bucket grew. Tomas frowned at the readings. "They're burning everything they've got," Mara nodded. "We stay steady." The track ahead began to shimmer with faint shadows. The next challenge waited. The debris spiral. Broken pieces of ancient ships and drifting stones circled through space in a slow, dangerous dance. Most racers slowed here, letting their systems carefully guide them through. The Valorian ship entered first, its bright shields pushing small pieces aside as it moved. The rust bucket followed. Myra raised her hand. "Get ready." Tomas flipped a switch. "Magnetic grapples armed." Lion's eyes focused, her hands tightening slightly on the controls. The human ship moved into the spiral. Pieces of metal and stone drifted past the windows. Some spun slowly. Others rushed by in sudden bursts. The rust bucket did not slow. Lion guided it through narrow gaps, using small bursts of speed and careful turns. Tomas activated the grapples, pulling the ship gently around larger objects instead of crashing into them. The ship moved like it was thinking. Behind them, the Cathari and others struggled, slowing down, taking safe and wide paths. The rust bucket gained ground. Mara watched the Valorian ship ahead, its glowing trail still bright but flickering slightly. "They're feeling it now," Tomas said. The human ship slipped through the final ring of the spiral and burst into open space. The position display changed. Second place was gone. Only one ship remained ahead, the Valorian flagship. Across the galaxy, a quiet understanding began to spread. The humans were not lucky, they were skilled. Myra took a slow breath and looked at the glowing path ahead. "Almost there," she said softly. The rust bucket pushed forward, calm and steady, chasing the brightest ship in the race as the stars watched in silent respect. The rust bucket followed the glowing path through the quiet stretch of space, its engines humming like a steady heartbeat. Ahead, the Valorian flagship shone bright and proud, its light cutting a sharp line through the dark. The distance between them was not large, but it was enough to remind everyone watching that the leader was still in control. Inside the grandstands, the crowd leaned forward as one. Thousands of different voices blended into a low, excited sound that filled the stations and echoed through the broadcast channels. The race had changed. What began as a joke had become something serious, something no one wanted to miss. The announcers spoke with new respect in their voices. "The human ship is now firmly in second place. This is beyond what any prediction models suggested." "They are not using superior technology," another replied. "They are using superior judgment." Inside the Valorian ship, the lead pilot kept their glowing eyes on the display. The human ship's dull shape followed behind, calm and unthreatening, yet impossible to ignore. "They are still there," the co-pilot said. The pilot's voice remained steady. "Then we stay ahead." The Valorian engines pulsed brighter, their light washing across the track like a rising sun. Inside the rust bucket, Tomas watched the energy readings carefully. "They're still pushing hard," Mara nodded. "They won't stop. We don't need to match them. We just need to be ready." Lion kept her hands light on the controls, her movements small and smooth. "Next section coming up," she said. "The Echo Corridor." Ahead, space narrowed into a long, glowing tunnel formed by compressed energy fields. Sounds and signals inside the corridor bounced and repeated, confusing sensors and sometimes even pilots. Many racers lost their sense of distance and direction there, thinking something was closer or farther than it really was. The Valorian ship entered first, its bright trail stretching deep into the corridor. The light echoed and split, creating dozens of false images. The rust bucket followed. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the screens inside the human ship filled with repeating signals and flickering lights. "Sensor noise increasing," Priya said. "Switch to manual markers," Mara replied. Lion pressed a button, and the main display changed to a simple set of lines and dots. She ignored the flashing lights and focused on the steady markers they had prepared for this moment. The corridor felt like a living thing. The ship's hull vibrated softly as waves of energy passed over it. The echoes of the Valorian ship's engines bounced back and forth, making it sound like it was everywhere at once. Lion guided the rust bucket carefully, trusting the ship's motion instead of the confusing signals. The ship stayed centered, calm and steady. Ahead, the Valorian pilot frowned. The false images of their own ship filled the display, making it hard to tell which path was true. "Focus on the primary track signal," the pilot said. The co-pilot tried to filter the noise, but the echoes were strong. The rust bucket began to close the gap. Slowly, quietly. On the grand screens, viewers watched the two ships draw closer inside the glowing tunnel, the bright and shining leader, the dull and steady follower. When both ships burst out of the corridor, the open space beyond felt wide and peaceful. The distance between them was smaller than ever. Myra looked at the display. "We're right behind them." Tomas smiled slightly. They won't like that. The next part of the track curved around a cluster of small, spinning stars. Their light twisted the space around them, creating shifting paths and moving shadows. The Valorian ship took the inside line, its systems calculating every change in the light and gravity. The rust bucket stayed a little wider. Lion followed the movement of the stars instead of fighting it. She let their pull guide the ship's curve, turning the natural motion of space into a smooth path forward. For a moment, the rust bucket gained. The human ship's dull hull appeared clearly on the Valorian ship's rear display. Inside the Valorian cockpit, the co-pilot spoke quickly. "They're almost on us." The pilot's glow brightened. "Then we increase output." The Valorian engines surged again, their light flaring so bright it washed out part of the track on the screens. Inside the rust bucket, Tomas shook his head. "They're overheating." Priya checked the readings. "Their core temperature is rising fast." Mara stayed calm. "They're trying to win this now." The track ahead began to change. The glowing lines split into several paths, each one twisting through a field of drifting energy clouds. Only one path was the true course. The others would loop racers back or slow them down. The Valorian ship rushed forward, trusting its advanced systems to choose the right path. The rust bucket slowed, just a little. Lion studied the clouds, watching how they moved and how the light bent around them. "The real path is the one with steady light," she said. "The others are shifting." Mara nodded. "Take it." The rust bucket turned smoothly into the correct path. Behind them, several ships chose wrong, their glowing trails vanishing into slow loops and fading light. The human ship gained more ground. Now the Valorian ship was just ahead. The crowd's sound rose again, filling every channel and station. Not laughter, not disbelief, hope. "Could they actually do it?" one announcer asked. "They're right there," another replied. "They are right behind the leader." Inside the Valorian ship, the pilot felt the pressure. The human ship was no longer a distant shape. It was close, too close. "They don't give up," the co-pilot said quietly. "No," the pilot replied. "They don't." The final part of this section of the track came into view. A wide, open space with faint lines of energy crossing it like a web. It was a place where speed and control had to work together. Too much power and a ship would drift off the path. Too little and it would fall behind. The Valorian ship pushed forward, trying to keep its lead. The rust bucket followed, steady and patient. Mara watched the two ships' paths overlap on the display. "Lion." "I know," Lion said softly. She adjusted the controls, lining the rust bucket up with the Valorian ship's energy trail. Tomas prepared the next system, his fingers hovering over the panel. "Ready when you are." The rust bucket moved into the faint wake left behind by the Valorian ship. The space there was slightly smoother, slightly easier to move through. The human ship began to gain speed without using more power. The gap closed. On the big screens, the two ships appeared side by side for the first time. Gasps echoed across the galaxy. The Valorian ship glowed like a star. The rust bucket looked like a simple piece of metal. Yet they moved together, matched in speed and direction. Inside the rust bucket, Mara allowed herself a small, proud smile. "There we are." The two ships raced through the energy web, their paths weaving together in a silent contest. The Valorian pilot glanced at the display, seeing the human ship beside them. "They're not falling back," the co-pilot whispered. "They're keeping up." For a long moment, neither ship pulled ahead. The stars watched. The crowd held its breath. Then in the distance, a new light appeared on the track. The final stretch was getting closer. Mara leaned forward in her seat. "This is it," she said softly. The rust bucket stayed beside the Valorian ship, its engines humming with quiet strength as both racers pushed toward the last great challenge. And across the galaxy, one truth had become clear. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were equals. The final stretch of the race lay ahead, a corridor of compressed light and energy that glimmered like silver threads stretched across the void. Ships that entered this zone relied on the most advanced engines, bending space and time to achieve speeds that left trails of fire and glow in their wake. Every racer had trained for this moment. Every pilot knew that one mistake here could decide victory or defeat. Inside the rust bucket, Mara Vance leaned slightly forward, her hands resting lightly on the control panel. She did not push the engines to their limit. She did not need to. What the human ship lacked in raw speed, it made up for with precision, adaptability, and understanding. Tomas Reed monitored the energy flow, his eyes scanning for fluctuations. Engines stable, core holding perfectly, we're ready for whatever comes. Priya Nair, keeping her focus on the ship's output, added, heat levels are under control, no risk of overload. Lion Cho, the navigator, had her hands steady on the manual controls. It's time to make our move, she said softly. Ahead, the Valorian flagship surged, its engines pushing to maximum. Light flared along its hull, and the ship bent space around it with incredible force. Its pilot was confident, certain that no other ship could keep pace. The rust bucket followed behind, maintaining a calm distance. The human crew did not panic. They knew something the others had overlooked. Technology alone could not guarantee victory in every challenge. Sometimes, understanding the environment and adapting was more important than speed. The compressed energy threads of the corridor shifted, creating a faint, irregular pattern. Sensors on every advanced ship reacted to the changes, calculating new trajectories, adjusting engines, and correcting pathways. Some of the racers flinched slightly as their systems struggled with the irregularities. The rust bucket moved differently. Lion guided the ship manually, letting the subtle variations in energy threads and gravitational tugs direct their path. She trusted her instincts, her training, and the responsiveness of the ship. Tomas activated a minor adjustment to the ship's magnetic stabilizers. The hull tilted slightly, taking advantage of the compressed energy fields, and the rust bucket glided forward without expending more power. Priya observed quietly. They're using pure force. We're using the flow. Mara nodded. Flow wins here, keep steady. As the corridor narrowed further, the Valorian ship pushed harder. Its bright glow intensified, creating ripples in the corridor that almost blinded sensors behind it. The crew relied on their advanced systems to avoid miscalculations. The rust bucket's crew did not need those systems. Lion felt the vibrations through the hull, felt the rhythm of the energy waves, and guided the ship accordingly. The small vessel moved with a grace the Valorian flagship could not match, responding to the corridor rather than trying to dominate it. The Valorian pilot noticed the movement behind them. They're still here, the pilot exclaimed. They shouldn't be able to maintain this speed in this section. The co-pilot adjusted several systems frantically. It doesn't make sense. Their engines aren't pushing like ours. They're doing something different, the pilot said sharply. Something we didn't account for. Inside the rust bucket, Myra allowed herself a quiet smile. She did not need to speak loudly. The crew understood. They moved as one, each member perfectly in tune with the ship and each other. The corridor opened into the final stretch, a vast expanse of open space, empty but for the faint glowing path marking the finish line. Beyond it, the galaxy waited with bated breath. Every world watching the race could see the two ships side by side. The Valorian flagship's glowing hull was radiant. The rust bucket's dull surface was calm and unassuming, yet it moved with purpose and precision. Lion adjusted the controls slightly. We're aligned, ready to go. Tomas checked the engine output. Everything's stable, no spikes. Priya confirmed core stability. All systems normal, this is it. Mara's eyes shifted from the display to the corridor ahead. We'll use what they don't expect, she said. The Valorian ship surged forward, relying on its raw power. Light flared and space itself bent around it. It was fast, too fast for any ordinary ship, but the rust bucket had something extraordinary. Tomas activated the ship's kinetic slingshot system, a method developed for moments like this. Instead of trying to outrun the Valorian ship with sheer power, they would use its own energy and momentum to gain advantage. Lion adjusted the course, lining the rust bucket with the gravitational wake left by the Valorian vessel. The subtle pull of the wake gave the rust bucket a boost without any extra strain on the engines. The ship moved faster than anyone had predicted, its dull hull gliding through the energy of its rival. Priya monitored the core. It's holding perfectly. We're gaining speed. Mara nodded. Keep it steady, don't overcorrect. Across the galaxy, sensors showed the change. The rust bucket's speed increased, closing the gap in a smooth, almost natural motion. The Valorian flagship surged to maintain its lead, but the humans were already using forces the Valorian crew had never considered. The finish line drew closer. Lights streaked past, and stars blurred into lines of color. The rust bucket moved with a calm certainty, flowing with the corridor's energy, using the leader's momentum to propel itself forward. The Valorian pilots' glowing eyes widened as they realized what was happening. They're using us, the co-pilot stammered. They're not matching our power, they're using it against us. The Rust Bucket's crew worked in perfect harmony. Each adjustment was minor but precise, each movement calculated instinctively. Lion's hands guided the ship along the optimum line. Tomas fine-tuned the engine's energy output. Priya maintained perfect core balance. Mara oversaw, guiding the decisions with a calm authority. Step by step, the Rust Bucket edged forward. The Valorian ship fought to maintain its lead, but the human vessel pressed closer and closer. In the grandstands, viewers gasped. The small, unassuming ship that everyone had mocked now moved alongside the brightest and most advanced vessel in the galaxy. Silence followed, a quiet awe replacing the laughter. "Could they actually do it?" whispered one Valorian spectator. "They are not afraid," replied another. "They are in control." The two ships approached the final meters of the track. The Rust Bucket's hull gleamed faintly in the light of the stars. The Valorian flagship blazed with radiant energy. Side by side they flew. Then, in a sudden and precise movement, the Rust Bucket's crew executed the final phase of their plan. Using the momentum and position they had built, they let the Valorian ship's own energy push them forward in a perfect line. The human ship surged past the flagship in a calm, effortless motion. The Finnish beacon glowed ahead, and the Rust Bucket crossed it first. Across the galaxy, shockwaves of amazement rippled through every station and world. Spectators erupted into cheers and applause. Some had never imagined such a simple-looking ship could achieve victory. Others had doubted humanity's skill, only to be proven wrong. Inside the Valorian ship, the pilot's glow dimmed slightly, a mix of disbelief and respect showing on the display. The co-pilot could only watch as the Rust Bucket moved beyond their view. Inside the Rust Bucket, Mara leaned back in her seat, a small smile on her face. "We did it," she said quietly. Lion exhaled, her hands relaxing. "We did." Tomas shook his head, a grin spreading across his face. "They didn't see that coming," Priya nodded. "Not a single system overload, not a single error, perfect." The Rust Bucket drifted past the finish line, engine steady, hull calm. The crew shared quiet satisfaction, knowing they had won not because of flashy technology or raw power, but because of understanding, teamwork, and ingenuity. Across the galaxy, the message became clear. Humans were not weak, primitive, or unworthy. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of feats that even the most advanced civilizations had not anticipated. And as the Rust Bucket floated past, a simple line of text appeared in the ship's log. "Primitive no more." The galaxy watched in awe, realizing that this small, unassuming ship and its human crew had changed the course of history in a single race. The Valorian flagship, the glowing vessel that had dominated the track for so long, followed behind. Its crew was silent, contemplating what they had just witnessed. They had been bested not by power, but by ingenuity. Every ship in the race, every being watching, knew the same thing. The humans had rewritten the rules of the game, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The Rust Bucket moved steadily away from the track, engines humming softly, its crew basking in the quiet triumph that only came from perfect execution, calm determination, and unwavering teamwork. No one could question their victory. No one could dismiss their skill. And no one would ever doubt humanity again. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but the Rust Bucket's crew knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The race had ended. Humanity had won. And the galaxy had watched as the unassuming, steady, and clever humans showed that sometimes the smallest ships and simplest minds could achieve the greatest victories. Myra looked at her crew and smiled. "Let's go home," she said. The Rust Bucket's engines hummed in agreement, carrying them forward, toward new adventures, new challenges, and new victories that awaited beyond the stars. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate humans, for they were patient, clever, and unstoppable when they worked together. The Rust Bucket floated past the finish line with calm authority, its engines humming softly in the quiet of open space. Around it, the stars glimmered like scattered jewels, but the crew hardly noticed. Their attention was focused inward, on the fact that they had just done something extraordinary. They had crossed the galaxy's greatest racetrack and proven something that no one had expected. Humans were no longer primitive. Inside the cockpit, Mara Vance leaned back, a faint smile on her face. Her eyes scanned the displays one last time, confirming the final results. Every system was stable, every reading normal, every calculation perfect. For once, the numbers aligned not because of luck, but because of careful thought and teamwork. Lion Cho exhaled slowly, her hands relaxing from the manual controls. "We did it," she said softly, almost as if speaking the words aloud would make the victory feel real. Tomas Reed shook his head, a grin spreading across his face. "I still can't believe it. They never expected this, did they?" Priya Nair smiled quietly, watching the final energy readings. "They didn't, and now they have to respect it." Outside the cockpit, the galaxy was buzzing with reactions. Across thousands of light years, beings from every corner of the universe had watched the race unfold. Their expectations had been challenged, and their assumptions proven wrong. The Valorian flagship, still glowing with radiant energy, followed behind at a steady pace. Its pilot was silent, absorbing the reality of the outcome. They had been defeated, but not by overwhelming firepower or sabotage. They had been outsmarted. The co-pilot finally spoke, their voice calm. "They didn't just keep up, they won." "Yes," the pilot replied, eyes still fixed on the dull hull of the rust bucket. "And they did it in a way we didn't anticipate. Clever, patient, and precise. Humans are not what we thought." Across the grandstands, every species that had gathered to watch the race was in awe. Spectators whispered among themselves, trying to process what had happened. The small, unassuming ship had defeated some of the most advanced technology in the galaxy, not through power, but through skill, intelligence, and coordination. An announcer's voice cut through the silence, soft but full of wonder. "Ladies and gentlemen of the galaxy, the results are clear. First place goes to the human vessel, the Rust Bucket, a simple ship with a simple crew, yet capable of extraordinary achievement." Messages from viewers across the galaxy poured in, showing admiration, shock, and newfound respect. Many species had underestimated humanity, but that mistake would not be repeated. Across star systems, fleets, and stations, a new understanding had begun to form. Humans were clever, adaptable, and unstoppable when working together. Inside the rust bucket, Myra looked at her crew. "We didn't just win, we showed them what humans are capable of." Lion nodded. "They'll be talking about this for generations." Tomas laughed softly. "I wonder if the Valorians will ever admit they misjudged us." Priya smiled. "Whether they admit it or not, they'll remember." The rust bucket moved smoothly through space, its engines leaving a faint trail of light behind. They were no longer just racers, they were symbols. A message had been sent across the galaxy. Humans could not be underestimated. They were patient, intelligent, and capable of thinking in ways others could not predict. As the ship drifted past distant planets and through fields of starlight, Mara allowed herself to think about the future. The race had been a single challenge, but the galaxy was vast. Opportunities awaited in every corner of space. Exploration, diplomacy, innovation, humans could now face them all with confidence. The crew reflected on what had made the victory possible. It was not the fastest engines, the brightest shields, or the most advanced systems. It was understanding, adaptability, and trust in one another. Each member had played a role. Each had contributed knowledge, skill, and intuition. Together, they had turned the race into a demonstration of human ingenuity. Messages from other ships appeared on their communication channels. Some were formal congratulations. Others were curious inquiries. A few offered invitations to join other races or explore new territories. Every message carried a tone of respect. Humans were no longer just newcomers, they were equals among the galaxy's great civilizations. The Valorian flagship finally matched pace to communicate directly. "Humans," the pilot's voice said through the channel, calm but respectful, "your performance was remarkable. We underestimated your abilities, it will not happen again." Myra responded with a simple, confident tone. "Thank you, we just did what we practiced and trusted each other to do. You'll see more from us in the future." The channel went silent for a moment before the Valorian ship quietly moved to maintain a parallel course. Even in defeat, their respect was clear. The rust bucket had earned it. As they continued through open space, the crew took a moment to appreciate the vastness around them. Stars stretched in every direction. Nebulae glowed softly in the distance. Comets left bright tails behind them. The universe seemed larger and more inviting than ever. Mara thought of what lay ahead. There would be more challenges, more races, and perhaps even conflicts or puzzles that required human skill. But now they had proven something fundamental. No matter how advanced others were, human determination, creativity, and teamwork could achieve the impossible. Lion spoke first, breaking the reflective silence. "Where to next?" Mara smiled. "Home for now, but soon we'll explore further. The galaxy has much to teach us, and we have much to show." The rust bucket glided forward, engine steady, hull calm. Each member of the crew felt a quiet pride, a satisfaction that came not from winning alone, but from proving that humans could rise above expectations. For the first time in many years, the galaxy was watching humanity differently. The small ship that had once been dismissed as primitive was now a symbol, a reminder that cleverness, patience, and courage often mattered more than sheer power. Every world, every fleet, and every species would remember this race. The rust bucket had crossed the finish line first, but it had also crossed a threshold in perception. Humans were no longer underdogs. They were innovators, thinkers, and equals among the stars. As they moved further from the track, Myra allowed herself a final reflection. "We've changed how the galaxy sees us," she said softly, "and that is just the beginning." Tomas leaned back in his seat. "I think they'll be talking about this race for centuries," Priya smiled. "Not just talking, they'll be thinking about it, about us." Lion adjusted the controls, guiding the rust bucket through the quiet path of open space. "We've earned this. Let's make sure we keep it." Mara nodded. "We will, together." The rust bucket floated steadily onward, leaving the track behind, carrying the crew toward new adventures. The victory was theirs, but it was also a message to the universe. Humans were patient, clever, adaptable, and unstoppable when they worked as one. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, but the rust bucket moved with purpose, ready for what lay beyond. Every system and every calculation confirmed that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would see humans in a new light, and they would never again be underestimated. The crew shared a quiet smile, knowing that the lessons of this race would guide them in the challenges to come. They had proven themselves in the most difficult competition imaginable. They had shown that being clever, adaptable, and united was more powerful than any flashy display of technology. And as the rust bucket drifted on through the endless darkness dotted with stars, a simple thought filled each of them. Humanity had arrived not as beginners, not as underdogs, but as equals. The galaxy had learned that lesson. And the rust bucket's quiet, steady path would be remembered as the day humans claimed their place among the stars. Myra leaned back, the soft glow of the ship's instruments reflecting in her eyes. "Let's go home," she said. And the rust bucket moved forward, engines steady, hull calm, carrying humanity into a new era of respect, adventure, and limitless possibility. The stars watched, silent witnesses to a small ship's incredible journey. The rust bucket was more than a vessel. It was proof that determination, cleverness, and teamwork could rewrite expectations and change the galaxy forever. Every planet, every fleet, and every civilization that had watched would remember the day a simple human crew achieved the impossible. They had won a race, but more importantly, they had earned respect and a place in the hearts and minds of the universe. The rust bucket drifted on, calm and steady, leaving behind a trail not just of light, but of hope, pride, and the promise of humanity's future among the stars.